Hello, today we are going to be talking about form. Form means an area that has three dimensions: height, width, and depth, most importantly. Now, let's take a look at some of the examples of form in artwork. First, we have a piece by M.C. Escher. You might recognize that name. He's very famous and does some really cool things where he makes you guess what's happening in his pieces. For example, here's this little guy. He's bugling his trumpet. Now we are going to take a look and see this part underneath. Is this a stairway going up to this path? Or is this a very zigzaggy bottom edge of this part that's protruding? So is this the underside of this wall, or is this a set of stairs going back? Same with these columns. It makes you wonder, is this a corner column that's rounded and poking out, or does it go back into space? Same with this column here. Is it protruding out, or is it going back like concave? And that's the name, concave and convex. So it makes you question your reality. Now, we also have a piece that shows form in its natural shape and form. We've got a real spoon, a three-dimensional spoon. That's a gigantic spoon, so big that it's like a bridge across this water. It's by Klaus Oldenburg, called Spoon Bridge and Cherry. And this is a real piece. You can't actually walk across it, but it is gigantic. So that's taking form and making it an unexpected size of something that we are familiar with, that we recognize, but making it such a different size from when we normally see it makes it very interesting. Now, for today's practice, I'd like for us to begin by writing your name. Let's do that together. All right, now we are going to practice drawing the following shapes and turning them into forms and shading them. Now we are going to start by taking a square, which has height, right? And it has width. But we do not see it going back in space at all. So what we're going to do, let's redraw this together. Let's draw in our square, nice and carefully. Now, let's draw a diagonal line going back from each of these three corners, going towards the right. Now we're going to make the back edge match the line that's in the front. So this line is straight. Let's make it match that same angle, going straight across. Now this line is going straight up and down. Let's make that line match what's in the front and go down, straight up and down. Now we are going to come in and shade these objects, pretending that the light is coming from the left. So let's go ahead and add a dark line along the base of the entire cube. And we are going to add the lines coming out in the same direction as what we see from our light. We're going to fill this space so that it goes from dark out to medium and then gets lighter and lighter. Now, because the light is shining from this side, we know that this is going to be our darkest side of our cube. So let's fill that in nice and dark. Now we are going to have a medium tone on the front and just a little bit lighter on top. All right. Now there is our cube. So we took it from being a square, which had height and width, and we made it into a cube because we added that third dimension of depth. That's what 3D means. We have the three dimensions: height, width, and depth. Now let's try adding depth to this triangle, which we've got height, right? We've got width, but we do not see it going back in space. So what we're going to do is make this into a pyramid type shape to turn it into a form. Now we are going to draw a line going at the same angle as what we drew for our cube, just kind of a diagonal backwards, and we'll connect that back. Now let's go ahead and add the shadow line, a nice dark line touching the bottom corner here. And we're going to draw our lines leading out from the light. And we're going to come in and fill in a dark tone right up against that line. And then medium and light as it gets lighter and lighter and lighter, as it gets farther and farther away. Now, this is our light side, so our dark side is going to be on the side that can't catch that light. So we're going to fill that right side in darker, and this side is going to be just a nice medium. All right, now let's add in our circle, turning it into a sphere. So we're going to do our best to draw that circle, and we are going to shade this by coming in and adding just a little bit of dark to the right and stretching that out with our value. I'm going to fade that out around this space to have it transition out to light nice and smoothly. All right, now we are going to add our shadow going out towards the right. This shadow will be a little bit smaller. We don't want it to be too large for the size of our sphere. And we're just gonna draw that shadow coming out, getting lighter and lighter. All right, good job. Now, that was our practice. You are welcome to go back through and continue perfecting to make these look the very best that you can make them look. Good job. Hello and welcome to the second practice for form. Today we are going to redraw this image above, so let's start together. Let's begin by taking a look at how much space we have taken up by the objects. The objects go almost down to the bottom of this square and almost up to the top. Now we are going to start by drawing our sphere, and I'm just going to add that in here. And then I'm going to come in and draw my cube next to it. I'm going to leave a little bit of space. And I am just going to draw this, oops. First line is straight up and down. I'm going to try to copy this angle. So I'm going to look at that angle and do my best to copy it. My sizing is a little bit off. It's a little bit too large, but that's okay. So I've made that first kind of slanted side of this cube. And then I'll come out going this direction. And now let's match the angle. So this is the top edge. I need to match that angle in the back here as well. Now I'm going to start my cylinder just a little bit higher up than my cube's base. And then we'll draw the top of our cylinder as an oval. We're going to drop that line down so it runs into the cube and so it runs into the sphere. And we're going to draw our tabletop line going right into the sphere, but above the bottom of the cylinder. Now let's go through and perfect these lines. I'm going to erase any spots that are kind of wonky, and I'm going to redraw them to look nicer. All right, now let's go through and we are going to find our darkest values. I would say that our background is definitely one, so let's go ahead and just start adding in some hatch lines. And we do not have to use pure shading for this. We can just go through and use our textures that we have up above. So I'm going to just go through and first fill this in with a pretty dark medium tone. Now we're just working with mechanical pencils, so I'm not going to make you go as dark as we see in the background just to save the pencil lead. Now we've got a good medium tone. Let's come in for our darkest values, and we're going to make these the darkest that we can with our pencil since there are not many. Now we're going to fill in this little space right under the sphere. We're going to add the darkest shadow where the sphere shadow is touching on the cube. And now let's kind of draw in that shadow. And then we're going to add that little curve that's kind of coming down. Now we drew in our darkest spots. Let's add the shadow medium tone in both of those spaces. Now I'm going to come in and on the side of my cube, I'm going to add some diagonal hatch mark lines. I'm gonna go both directions. We also need the shadow underneath the sphere. And I'm gonna come in and add just like some hatch mark lines for the sphere itself, kind of going along that line where the shadow is darkest. And then I'm gonna go the opposite way just to help it get lighter. I'm gonna layer this to help have a smooth transition. Let's do that same thing for our cylinder. So I'm gonna go through with like a diagonal kind of angle line, just drawing in where it's a little darker. Then I'm gonna switch directions. I'm gonna space these lines out more so that it looks like it's getting lighter. Now we fill in the top of our cylinder. We're gonna add some dark to the left and a little bit along the top here. And I think we'll call it good there. Thanks for following along. For today's practice, we are going to use our best judgment to draw straight lines, and we are practicing perspective. Now that means that we have one tiny spot that we are leading all of these lines back to. Now we're going to start, and let's do this all together. So you're going to start at this top triangle, and notice that these lines are all leading right back to the vanishing point. Now we are going to do our best to draw straight lines lightly, and only from these bottom corners, because this top corner would be behind and we don't see the top part because we're seeing the underneath side since it's above the vanishing point. Now let's draw straight lines from this circle back to the vanishing point. Nice and light. We don't need these to be very dark. Now, when we do this cube over here on the bottom left, let's just draw all of these lines from each corner backwards. Now from this box as well, let's take each corner and bring it back to that vanishing point. Now let's do the arrow and the star together. They are the more complex versions of this, but we're looking for any corners, and any corner we draw back that line. Now, we do not have to draw in the corners that would be behind something, because now we see the top edge instead of the bottom edge like we did for this triangle. And we see the top because we are working underneath the horizon line here. Now we're gonna come in and add these lines going backwards from the star towards that vanishing point from any corner that can reach. All right, now the last part of this practice is very important. We're learning that the first line that's in front is the angle that we mimic, and then we erase the rest. So try that with this first triangle. Mimic that bottom line's angle, make it nice and straight, and then erase the rest. And you get to decide how thick you want your spaces to be. Now we've got this sphere. I'm going to just curve that line so that it matches the curve of my sphere, or my circle here, and then I erase the rest. Let's try it for this first cube down here. We are going to look at this front line and make it match that angle. And then here is this top line. Let's make it match that angle. And then we can erase the rest of our line. Now for our arrow, let's practice again. Here's our first line. We're gonna match that angle. And here's this next line. We're gonna match that angle. And it should be a little bit lower so that it looks like it has that same amount of indent as the actual arrow itself. For the star, let's end our lines in the same angle as what's in front of them. Same angle, and same angle. All right. Erase those extra lines. Make sure you're not erasing lines from other shapes until you've got them all finished. And here's our last little rectangle. We're gonna end by following that same angle as the line in front of it. And then we erase the extra. Now I'll give you another minute or two to get caught up, but if you are already finished, I would like to have you draw in a sun on the right-hand side. And you're going to go through and you're going to shade the side that's farthest away and that's in front. So what is farthest away on this side is probably here, and then it starts to get lighter as it wraps around because it's rounded, right? This one we have probably just a little bit on this side and then lighter. Probably darker here. And medium on front. So the fronts of these are all going to be the same. We're going to have like a nice light medium tone on the front of all of our shapes. Now we are going to add shadow to the side that's farthest away. And then we're going to leave the light side on the side that's hitting that light. All right, now here is the example. So I am just gonna leave this up on the board for you to go ahead and finish up. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget, as you finish this final step, make sure your name is on the front. You fold this in half and place it in your Bellringer folders so that you don't lose this when it's time to turn it in. Thanks so much for watching.